You want to be speaking about any employees?
No.
Okay.
So I had 3 points I kind of wanted to make. And first, I kind of want to preface this with, hopefully I won't have too much time to do this, but that I want to make sure what I'm saying makes sense here going forward. So the only authority any government body has is given to them through legislative process. That includes school boards, county boards, city councils, all of that. The premise of all this is that we operate under Dillon's rule. If something, if it doesn't say that any particular body has that authority, they just don't have it. I'm sure you guys are all aware of that too, and with everybody else. So what I'm going to say is probably things that teachers couldn't say. The students probably won't say. A lot of parents might be afraid to say it. So I'm kind of going to be the voice, I think, for some things that probably need to be said. So the 3 points I want to address. The first one is related to the COVID. Board of Education and Department of Health released Part 4 guidance in March, this last month. And I'm just curious, and there was some updates in that, and I didn't see it on the agenda as far as stuff to be updated in that. And I'm curious if Shelbyville schools have been following that sort of guidance, why it's not now. And I'll read this is this for anybody that hasn't seen it. It's revised public health guidance for schools, transition joint guidance from March. So anything that's published in this was prevails. Anything previously published is what they said. Regarding the face mask too, it says that must be worn in school buildings, except as follows: when eating, of course, lunch, they have them off. Then it says when outdoors and some physical distancing. The actual mask mandate, the 690.50 says that too. The part that I noticed about that is all the kids on the playground, are they given the opportunity to remove masks while they're on the playground if they're outdoors? I see most of them still have it. I don't know if they've been told that or not. I have no idea on that one. So when I get to the end, if anybody wants to address that, they can. You're not required to. But one of the other things they pointed out was they have evidence suggesting staff-to-staff transmission has been bigger than student-to-staff or student-to-student, really sort of just kind of laying out that the kids themselves aren't really the issue here. And the main one I stood out to me here is the symptom screenings. I don't know if anybody's aware, their update on this says districts and schools should require self-certification and verification of all staff, students, and visitors prior to entering school boarding, school buildings. The IDPH and CDC no longer recommends screenings upon arrival to the school grounds. That's still being done, the best I can tell, but they're actually recommending not to do that if you read this. But it also says schools may continue this practice if preferred. Problem with that is I think if you're operating outside of that guidance, that I don't think a school has authority to do that without some legislation there. So I would caution a little bit on that. And if you read the reasons that the CDC has changed that, is because it actually failed to identify 45% of the kids that actually had it, and then 40% of the time they had symptoms. It wasn't that anyways. Really what it amounted to, it was creating bottlenecks. It creates another close contact point. It's opposite of what they're trying to get to. So they've revised that. So the temperature checks and all that, well, I might agree, might be a good idea. It's not legal. And then another thing on their, I don't remember what they call this, but something tree, decision tree or something. I don't know if anybody caught the bottom of this. They're actually wording this is based on available data and science. Schools must make local decisions informed by local context in consultation with their local health department. So my concern is if we have state stuff coming down, the state is telling you to make decisions based on local context too. I'm just curious if that's been done. So that was kind of point number one. Point number two, coming back to government body authorities. At no point was legislative authority turned over to Board of Education, Department of Health, CDC, or a governor. None of those departments have the authority to create laws. I'm sure we're all aware of that. I paid attention in school for that, luckily. What's happening here is they're creating rules and laws that everybody's following in here, but they don't have that authority to do that. And there's Supreme Court cases here that say just that. A health department, I'll read that off. Health authorities cannot promulgate and enforce rules which merely have a tendency to prevent and spread of a contagious and infectious disease. The health authorities cannot interfere with the liberties of a citizen until an emergency actually exists. This is Illinois Supreme Court. This was upheld again last year too. I believe why this stuff is all being called guidance is it's guidance. It's just an idea of where to go. It's suggestions. It's not laws. Guidance can't override state law. I think that's important. And I don't know if anybody can show me exactly where we gave authority to any of those groups to, require kids to cover their faces 7 or 8 hours a day. It's not in there anywhere. The only thing you're getting that from is just the guidance from these groups. That's it. It doesn't exist. There's no authority there outside of that stuff. It would have had to have gone through legislation. That never happened. And if it's not a law, it can't have consequences for not following it. That's why when you read all this stuff, there's nothing built into any of this to deal with. What happens if 200 kids show up tomorrow and they say we're not putting masks on? There's no process built in to deal with that because they didn't intend for that to be ran that way. And then point number 3, I guess, if the only way that you could, you're not able to really go by guidance, that's not a law, is you might be able to go by the school uniforms policy or whatever else. And a lot of this is guided by state law, which is 105 ILCS, the school code. And that even says no student shall be denied attendance at school, penalized, or otherwise subject to compliance measures for failing to wear a uniform. That would be the closest thing that I could get to make any comparison. Because of, there was 4 reasons. The first one is personal choice, which I really like. And there's a couple others, and then religious objection by students, parent, guardian, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I understand that I don't believe this group would want to vote on to allow or not allow. What I see is I don't think that it requires any vote from anybody in here. I don't believe that there's any mechanism in place that would allow anything to be done to a student for failing to comply with guidelines, not laws, reminder. And there's all kinds of data science, whatever that has been talked about. I get that. This chart here is for your students. If you want to know if this is dangerous, 25% of the population is right here. This isn't dangerous for the kids here. The same kids that are in here and have their faces covered all day come to my business afterwards. Every evening of the week, they're in the same building. They're all fine. So I wouldn't ask for a vote on whatever else to anything to do with masks and that sort of requirements, but I think I would ask for everybody to review all this stuff and kind of see what I'm looking at here. And I don't think there's any authority for a school to kind of do much about that in that scenario. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, or is there anybody?